Please know that we are about to commence recording this meeting. The video and audio will be on this. Thank you, Sean. Recording has started. Welcome, everyone, especially members of the public, to this meeting. And we have two deputations after we get through the formalities. I'll read the civic prayer. Almighty God, help us to duly and faithfully carry out our numerous duties to the best of our judgment and ability, the advancement of this district and the benefit of all whom we are here to serve. And the Coorong District Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet. Thank you. We have apologies. We have a formal apology from Councillor Yench. And I'll just note that Councillor Roundtree tonight is on Zoom as per she's waving, I can see a bit of it, as per our COVID emergency provisions. Councillors, there's late items there. There's one late item, sorry. Everyone's happy to accept that as a late item, I trust. That's yes, thank you. Someone move that we accept the late item. Sorry, Councillors Arthur and Coleman. Discussion. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Move to item 2, deputations. So I've got 2 deputations. So I've asked both of the presenters to come forward to speak from the lectern. We're just going to shift a little microphone up closer to them. Sean, do you want to do that? Carol, if you come forward, please. Welcome. And the reason is that so the public can see you on the live streaming, which we hope you'll work. Deputations have 10 minutes and then the councillors can ask questions. All yours, thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of our members, we thank the Coorong Council for the opportunity to address our written submission and answer your questions. Grain Producers SA, or GPSA, represents South Australian grain producers, the government, the community and industry. We represent an industry that has over 3,000 farming operations and accounts for over 4 million hectares. South Australia's cropping land is equivalent in size to the entirety of Switzerland, with the industry producing 8 million tonnes a year on average. Broadacre farming is worth $2 billion in farm gate sales to the South Australian economy and is projected to contribute $6 billion in gross food revenue by 2030. GPSA develops and implements policies and projects that promote the economic and environmental sustainability of South Australian grain businesses. For the avoidance of doubt, GPSA strongly supports the lifting of the moratorium. GPSA's position is not about picking winning production systems, but rather enabling all producers to have the freedom to grow the crops that best suit their business. GPSA believes that growers should have the freedom of choice to grow the cereal, legume and oilseed varieties that best fit their farming system, including genetically modified crops, non-GM, organic and biodynamic farming systems. Removing the GM food crop moratorium from mainland South Australia will enable producers to have the same freedom of choice as growers from other mainland states. The current moratorium on GM crops is constraining business and overall industry growth. This has ramifications for the South Australian economy, more broadly including our loss of reputation, our loss of competitiveness, increased cost of business, industry stigma, and loss of precious research investment. South Australia is the last mainland state to have a ban on the commercial cultivation of GM crops. The moratorium has been in place since 2004 and has hindered the adoption of new varieties proven safe by the Office of Gene Technology Regulator, the OGTR, the federal regulator. It is the federal regulator that assesses human health and environmental safety, and it is the OGTR that has approved the commercial release of varieties of canola and safflower, which can readily be adapted to South Australian grain production systems. It cannot be stressed enough that GM products are currently used by everyday Australians. Insulin used by diabetics is genetically modified. South Australian farmers have a long history of innovating and adopting new technology to improve productivity, and we need to ensure that South Australians have access to all the tools on offer for best practice crop production. Interstate grain producers may choose to adopt GM canola varieties in their farming enterprise to take advantage of agricultural and environmental benefits, Yet South Australian producers are treated differently. Industry experts Mercado undertook rigorous economic analysis which found that South Australian farmers did not receive any price premiums because of SA's GM-free status. A summary of the report can be found in our submission. This analysis suggests that SA producers were trading at a 2 to 30% discount compared to Western Australia and or Victoria in all but one commodity. Further, since 2012, non-GM canola in South Australian export ports has consistently traded between 2 and 3% below Geelong and Banana, respectively. And in addition, over the past 3 years, SA has not exported canola to either France or Germany to prohibit commercial GM cultivation. However, over the same period, WA exported approximately 1.2 million tonnes to those countries. So it's important to note the methodology used in this report. Its most logical pricing point to analyse is a comparison of the price of non-GM canola in Adelaide with non-GM in other states. And this methodology has not been used by those opposing GM crops, where GM crop prices and non-GM crop prices are compared. Comparing the discount between non-GM and GM in another state is not analogous comparison to South Australian crop canola pricing. But when comparing pricing, it is important to choose an appropriate time period because 1 week is not considered a long enough time period for a robust analysis. And this is especially important in agricultural commodities, which can be volatile due to weather conditions causing supply constraints. But we do know that GM production can and does coexist. And at present, Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria all have a higher number of organic certifications in South Australia and all permit the commercial cultivation of GM crops. In 2019, the government commissioned a high-level review of South Australia's moratorium on the cultivation of GM food crops. And this found that the moratorium had cost South Australia's grain industry at least $33 million since 2004. Whilst that direct cumulative cost for the state, it's important to note that our state only produces 8.7% of Australia's canola crops, so that $33 million is significant. And with no clear pathway to market, plant breeders have limited the development of new varieties suited to SA farms. Debate should not be thought about in the context of the 2021 season, but in the context of encouraging research and allowing innovation in the farming sector. We should be proud of our research and ensure that South Australia can continue to be a world-leading producer of new plant varieties to ensure that we can feed the world as a net food exporter. But we acknowledge that industry coexistence is critical for both organic and non-organic farmers. Different types of wheat, barley and rice are grown in close proximity without any adverse effects to those markets. In fact, GM varieties such as omega-3 enriched canola are expected to yield price premiums, meaning that in future, it'll be GM producers wanting to separate their premium products from conventional or organic varieties. Coexistence is assured with South Australia's predominant grain handler and marketed by Terra, confirming it can handle both GM and non-GM varieties. And there have been no contamination issues since GM crops were introduced in Australia in 2004. The industry works hard, both domestically and internationally, on maintaining the integrity of the supply chain to ensure continual market access. And we believe that it is this industry that is best placed to maintain the quality and integrity of those supply chains, and that a moratorium has no practical value in ensuring integrity or market access. If an application by a council is ultimately successful, it will only prohibit the cultivation of GM varieties. It will have no application, for example, in the commercial sale of GM products in supermarkets or the transport of GM crops or products through that area. GM research may also be carried out in an area designated as GM-free, subject to approval of the Minister. So in the absence of trade or marketing benefits, we urge the Coorong Council to decline to make an application to be designated as a GM cultivation-free area. After 16 long years, it is time to give our producers choice. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, questions?
One question, everything revolves around canola. As a grain producer, you'll be looking at the, safflower and a lot of other things that are grown GM now to increase the productivity in the area.
Absolutely. Look, canola plays a really important part in the rotation, but certainly the application of GM technology has other benefits in that cropping rotation system. So in terms of the current commercial varieties, yes, the focus is canola, but as I've said in my introduction, that GM safflower is now available for commercial use, and certainly there will be a lot of interest in certain South Australian zones for the adoption of those particular varieties. But this debate is about ensuring that there is commercial incentive for ongoing research. So it's providing a commercial pathway at the moment without having to commercially cultivate GM crops here in South Australia. There is no incentive to apply this breeding. So the University of Adelaide is conducting trials in Western Australia. So what we want to do as an industry is to release the shackles, allow the market to decide, and ultimately send that signal to breeding programs so we can see this technology readily deployed to help overcome some of our production constraints that obviously farmers here in South Australia are up against.
Just having within the our Coorong Council area, probably the article, major part of the recently growing areas of Australia. Just on the weekend talking to guys about GM, they're excited about GM Lucerne, which is overseas, and they hope they can breed a GM Lucerne which is bloat free at the present moment. It is a big problem. So
yeah,
if being the centre of the Lucerne growing industry in Australia, to be able to get a GM Lucerne down there would be magnificent. To be able to do the groundwork stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's the central point here, is that this technology will be readily deployed where there is a market opportunity, but also where it is commercially relevant. So something such as an improvement to our current Lucerne varieties to ensure that it has better use in feedlotting or other applications is a really exciting prospect. And I think that's where farmers will be looking at their own farming system and considering whether or not, just like they do every other variety in which they grow, every other commodity market in which they participate, if it will work in their environment, in that farming system, and in turn, what the market signal is. And that's all we're asking. So we want to empower our producers to make those choices and not have decisions made on their behalf.
Further questions? Councillor Lee.
Thank you. Speaking of freedom of choice, those farms who choose not to want to have anything to do with GM crops, what's their choice when GM modified grain is dropped on the side of the road and then affects the non-GM crop?
We often hear this being put forward as a theory that would somehow inhibit the choice of non-GM growers or potentially organic or biodynamic. The reality is this, that we have had commercial cultivation in Australia for the last 16 years. These concerns have been addressed through stewardship programs in relation to canola, through the OGTR and risk assessment. So before a variety can be released for commercial cultivation, it goes through rigorous environmental testing. It also goes through testing for human health. So the claims and the concerns in which you refer, as an example, I think it can be addressed twofold. One, through obviously the stewardship program that growers who choose to elect to grow GM canola, as they do in every other mainland state, is required to go through, and also the fact that the industry itself has its own protocol. So there is no incentive to contaminate. There is no incentive to see someone else's decision taken away from them in terms of pursuing organic certification. We know that the industry can coexist because that is what happens in the state. In terms of weed-side management of weeds, obviously that would be a topic that the local council would be asked about on multiple fronts. That if you understand in terms of the type of herbicide tolerance that's built into the current varieties of canola, it is a spectrum of chemistry. So other chemicals could be used to control that. But it is, I think, grossly overstated in terms of the impact. What we want to do is have respect. It's exactly like chemical stewardship. Our industry has stewardship plans in place for the safe harvesting of grain during the fire season. Our industry has these programs, and I can't see this being industry.
I'm going to raise the roadside pollutants because it is a major issue, I believe, with the cotton industry, particularly in northern Queensland, northern New South Wales, Queensland, where they've been using Monsanto modified cotton seed to be resistant to Roundup. And it's a major problem for councils in those areas. How do you think of that respect?
Well, I don't think you need to worry about cropping grain on the side of your road in the Coorong District Council. In reference to the concerns about Monsanto, I'd like to make it clear that the cotton industry has gone down a very different path in the development of their cotton varieties, applying GM technology. It was actually developed by CSIRO. So BT resistant cotton is grown extensively, and yes, they looked at other mechanisms to incorporate GM technology. So to say that it is one particular technology provider that has led to the development of the cotton industry isn't quite correct. But in terms of it would be of no difference to any other weed management practice. But again, all I can say is in terms of canola, which is the crop, and safflower that are grown, the way in which woodchip programs work here in Australia is very strict in terms of treating the seed and other cleanup. So at the moment, we do have herbicide tolerant varieties that have derived not from GM, from genetically modified techniques, but from other plant breeding techniques that fall outside of the scope of the gene technology, the genetically modified crops act in South Australia. So triazine tolerant canola, for example. So these varieties are currently being grown. The methodology by which the genes are altered has no bearing in your concerns with the councillor in terms of your responsibilities in terms of environmental stewardship and clean up with roadside weeds. So I don't see how that would be any different. There's not really a difference in who the technology provider is in addressing your concern.
Okay, Councillor Rountree on the Zoom.
Hi, thank you. That was a great presentation. Just wondering, there was a request from a ratepayer looking at cutting off a section of land that is quite secluded. And I'm wondering whether you've seen that work in other regions where we would have cut off a peninsula or a bit of area and let them remain GM free for their economic benefit. Whether you sort of see that working, can they work together?
Thank you for your question. So you might be aware that under the South Australian legislation, Kangaroo Island has been designated by legislation, by statute, to remain a GM-free area. And that was done in line with the way in which the Act was developed in 2004 to recognise regions. And in terms of the practical limitation on the island, what that means is that the half a dozen or so canola growers would not have access to GM canola varieties that are currently available if mainland South Australia were to go down this path. And it's something that was examined for trade and marketing purposes, which is in fact the scope of the Act in relation to the findings of the independent review. And KI was found through their small number of growers there to be leveraging a market opportunity, and certainly using the existing non-GM protocols in place, so those growers will be able to continue to enjoy that market. But the point is that on a line on a map, there is nothing stopping an individual producer from pursuing market opportunities, just like there are now, whether or not to go down the path of being organic certified or to pursue a particular type of market, to grow a particular type of variety of wheat or barley or any other commodity for that matter. So a line on a map doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, because you still have to test the product integrity. And that's what I'm saying, is that the industry stewardship protocols in relation to managing potential weed volunteers right through to supply chain protocols comes down to the testing and the integrity of the system. We've got a very sophisticated bulk handling system. We've got one of the biggest locations, the biggest inland sites here at Tailem Bend that is equipped to managing those segregation protocols. And that's why it's so important that Viterra, in providing the assurance in which they have to industry to demonstrate that segregation can and will work, is a way to ensure that growers do have the choice to access those segregations and pursue that market. So it's not necessarily a line on the map. It comes down to the integrity of that supply chain. And that's what we have on Kangaroo Island, with a small number of growers who supply one market with a very small parcel of canola, and good luck to them. And we want to empower them to continue to service that market. But it's due to their supply chain protocols, not necessarily, they don't market it on the basis of a legislated requirement without doing their own product testing. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it sort of does. The area I'm talking about is the Narang Peninsula. So it's sort of a little finger that sits out there all on its own. And it would, from a logistical point of view, it would be quite easy to sort of draw a line on a map and say that area is GM free, and it stops people, it allows this person to operate their business in a way that they can still make money. They've got a good economic argument. But I take your point. It's the system, the testing, and all the other things that could help this person still remain able to have her markets, if that's what she needs to do. So yeah, I appreciate the answer.
Thank you. And to be clear, in terms of if we can look at the way in which other states, and WA is probably the most relevant example because it is the most recent mainland state that has gone through this process. In terms of the number of, or the percentage, if you like, of canola that is of a GM variety, I don't believe it's exceeded 30% of the total canola grown in that state. So we're not every field of canola that you will see is at all pegged to a variety derived from GM technology. And that is our central point. You're about to hear from an agronomist. I mean, your agronomist stands in your field and will be advising you on which varieties are best suited to your farming system and your farming environment. And that decision is made in the paddock, looking at your gross margins and looking at the availability of the supply chain to access those markets. So nothing changes. It is just simply facilitating choice for those growers for reasons other than potentially it could be a systems approach where you're looking at weed management strategies on your farm. And what we're saying is provide the incentive to that farmer and the researcher to continue to develop new varieties and pursue new markets. And I think the industry has proven itself as being a highly sophisticated food supplier that is quality assured, and this is no different.
Councillor Roundtree, you're happy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Any other questions?
Thank you
There being
very much
none.
for having me.
Thank you, Caroline, very much. Swap over, and Matt Howe, you come down, please, and we'll kick you 10 minutes away, and there you go.
Button or something to press, actually, or was you just do it for me?
Ashley's your button presser, Matt.
All right.
Welcome anyway.
No worries, thank you very much. CEO, Mayor Simmons, elected Coorong councillors, thank you for making the time for me to speak here today. I'm here to speak to you today on genetically modified crops and their role in the Coorong farming system. For the purpose of today's talk, I'm going to shorten genetically modified to GM. So who am I? And why am I qualified to be here speaking to you? My name's Matt Howe. Amongst my other qualifications, I hold a Bachelor of Agriculture from the Uni of Adelaide. For the last 12 years, I've been a local agronomist in the Menangi region, working with 35 farmers and farm businesses. I look after about 28,000 hectares of crop, about 40,000 hectares of perennial pasture. I'll make a confession though, I work for a rural retail outlet called Platinum Ag Services, based at Menangi. More importantly though, I'm a member of the Coombandook Ag Bureau, the Lakes Dairy Discussion Group, the wider Coorong agricultural community, and I'm a ratepayer in the Coorong District Council. So why am I here speaking to you today? I've been watching the GM debate with a lot of interest, and I feel there's a few gaps that I can help address. So today I'm going to explain to you GM stewardship. I'm going to show you the fit for the GM in our local farming system, show you what's coming in the future, and answer any of your questions related to the agronomy of growing GM crops. So, number one, GM stewardship. It's not so simple. So to become a grower of anything genetically modified, both the farmer and the agronomist must complete the stewardship accreditation for each GM trait that they want to do. So I've been and done an accreditation for one trait. I had to go to Horsham, took a full day, plus the travelling time to get over and back. Each farmer or agronomist that wants to do it has to complete the same thing. Then the farmer and the retailer of the seed have to sign a licensing and stewardship agreement. They have to register where they want to grow the GM crop. They have to adhere to strict crop management plans, resistance management plans, and volunteer management plans for the year of growing and the year after. So it's definitely not a simple process, and everyone along the chain, from the farmer to the retailer to the guy driving the truck to the silo, is held legally accountable for their actions. And then above this, all of this is subject to oversight by the Office of the Gene Technology Regulator. The Gene Technology Regulator is an independent government body based out of Canberra, and their sole job is to monitor GM in Australia. And interestingly enough, they sit outside the Department of Health, not outside the Department of Primary Industries. So, GM and our farming system. I can see 3 instantly applicable fits for us here in the Coorong region. Number 1 is PodGuard traded canola. So putting it simply, PodGuard is strengthening the pod around the canola seed. So currently the way canola is grown is we windrow about 2 to 2.5 weeks prior to the canola being physically matured. We do this as a risk management tool so wind doesn't shatter it. That's a carton.
It's the second carton for the day, actually.
And then, so we windrow our canola as a risk management tool. So PodGuard will allow us to let the crop go through to full maturity. We'll go that extra 2.5, 3 weeks and fill the pods completely. The PodGuard trait stops any wind shattering losses we can have. So we get a yield benefit of between 10 and 13%. Plus we save $40 a hectare worth of windrowing. So this is a significant saving for anyone, plus a significant yield benefit for anyone who grows a significant portion of canola in their program. For anyone who's from a non-farmer background, canola ranges from 20 to 35% of the farmer's program now as a break crop. So next instant fit I can see is SHO SAFLAB. So CSIRO developed the superhyalate SAFLAB. So the superhyalate SAFLAB produces an oil that's a direct replacement for petroleum-based oils as a lubricant. So basically we're making a cleaner, greener alternative to mined oils. That's got to be good. But for me, as an agronomist, I'm more interested in its agronomic benefit. This stuff will grow and yield quite profitably in sodic soils. We've got sodic soils showing up Tintinara, moorlands around Ringy. So sodic's high in sodium. They're very dispersive soils. They're very hard. Canola, beans, lupins do not grow in them well. We lose money if we try to grow them there. Last one is the obvious one that everyone's talking about and everyone's scared of. But to be honest with you, 95% of farmers are not interested in herbicide tolerance. Herbicide tolerance will allow farmers to use a certain mode of action. Everyone's talking about Roundup Ready, let's not ignore it. But they'll allow them to use a certain mode of action herbicide at a time when they normally wouldn't be able to. So this is going to be a useful tool for farmers. It's not going to be a commonly used tool, but it is a useful tool. It will only be used in problem paddocks because at the end of the day, we do have possibly an economic penalty for using this technology compared to our current varieties. But unless it's in a problem paddock, we don't have enough choices. We're doing this because we have to. So the next one I wanted to show you was this table comes directly off the Office of the Gene Technology Regulator's website. This is not hidden information. Look it up, have a go yourself. It's under the trials. This is trials that are currently being done in Australia. So look at the crops that it's doing. Chickpeas, wheat, barley, sorghum, perennial ryegrass. We grow them all here in South Australia. There's cotton and bananas too, but not so applicable to us. The important thing I want to point out is it's not big, bad, sticking more herbicide tolerance into things. It's big picture traits that people are trying to get done. It's drought tolerance. It's improving the human nutritional qualities of wheat, barley. It's improving what we feed our cattle, our sheep. It's disease resistance, it's drought tolerance, it's insect resistance. It's big picture stuff that's going to be exported to the world, but it's going to change the game on how we farm. It's going to make it actually involve less spraying, more. And the last one I want to point out is everyone's scared of big international conglomerates that are coming in and taking over the world. Look who's doing the research. It's the Queensland Uni of Tech, Uni of Melbourne, Uni of Adelaide, CSIRO. So Uni of Adelaide, right here in South Australia, they do a shitload of greenhouse work. They do a heap of glasshouse work here in Adelaide, and they export it all to Western Australia to do the big picture expensive trials. So we're losing a heap of research and development money from our regions. It's a no-brainer to me. You do see Monsanto on there. Monsanto are subject to the same oversight as everyone else in Australia. Righto. Now, for the local farming community, traits that are commercialised already in crops around the world. So BT, and Carolyn referred to it just before, BT actually stands for Bacillus thuringiensis, bacterial insecticide. And prior to it being inserted into crops, it was a registered insecticide across Australia and the rest of the world. It's considered that safe, it's still registered in the Australian organic industries. So BT is already a massive success in Australia. BT, when they put it into cotton in the 90s, it reduced pesticide use on cotton by that much. It reduced it from 15 to 17 passes per year with a plane to 2 using the BT gene. A massive reduction in pesticide use in cotton. The next one, and Councillor Arthur will love this, is Harv Extra in alfalfa in the States. You convert that to Australian, and that's Harv Extra trait into lucerne. Lucerne's our major perennial pasture here in the Coorong district. So the Harv Extra trait, it does something pretty simple. All it does is reduce the amount of lignin in the plant, which makes it more digestible by the stock. That's got to be a good thing. We're growing the same plant, let's just make it more utilisable by the stock. Basically, more kilos of beef per hectare. It's more profitable. And the last one for me is one I'm interested in, is drought guarding maize. So this was developed in the US to increase the consistency of yield in dryland environments. Particularly important because they exported this straight to third world Africa for food security. But for me, anything that increases the water use efficiency of the plant has to have an application in Australia, the most droughted country in the world.
2 minutes.
So this is my final slide. In closing, I believe the whole GM debate is about farmer choice. Farmers want the choice of what they can grow on their own farm. Farmers today are a highly educated, highly informed group of smart business people who want to sustainably and economically farm the land and see our district thrive into the future. Thank you very much for your time today. Happy to take any questions if you want.
Councillors, questions? Trace, Councillor Hill.
We had that list of universities and stuff.
Yep.
Universities normally have commercial partners.
Yep.
So it's all a little bit say Adelaide University, but it's who's actually funding it. And it's also not necessarily who's doing it, it's what's going into some of these crops. And I really don't have a lot of faith in federal government to make sure that human health is the prime consideration in commercial and corporate economic activity always usually comes first. So how long are human studies done?
Oh, I can't tell you that, to be honest with you. But it's interesting, the Office of the Gene Technology Regulator does actually sit with the Department of Health Service. Their sole concern before they're allowed to release anything. They're an independent regulator. Jump on their website, you can read about the current regulator of the government. She's a doctor by trade, so I'm guessing she's qualified.
The smoking used to be being safe too. It took 50 years of lobbying by a lot of people to try and get exposed as being hidden.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, there's not always, human health is not always.
But we need to bring ourselves to the question.
Yes,
Councillor.
what was made,
Yeah.
Ox University,
Yeah, sure.
Department of Health is taking control of the human stuff. I don't know, how long is a trial done on something before it's absolutely deemed health safe for people to eat?
Good question. But the number one GM crop in the world is GM soybeans. 99% of it is of soybeans are GM nowadays. So pretty much everything in your diet nowadays contains some form of soy. Avoiding GM, I don't think is possible anymore.
And that's my problem.
I don't think we're here to debate the health safety of it.
No, we weren't given the opportunity to debate. We weren't given the opportunity to debate the economics.
More questions? Councillor Arthur?
Yeah, when we talk about gene technology, how long have the other states had it? And has there been any catastrophic disaster that's happened in all these other states?
As far as I'm aware, there's only been one legal proceeding about GM cross-pollination, and that was proved innocent in Western Australia.
And that was organic.
Yeah, it was a cross-pollination from GM to organic, and they were proved innocent. So, yeah, that's one case in Australia. In Western Australia's had it for 7 years, 6 years. New South Wales since the early 90s. Yeah.
So nearly 30 years.
You need to speak up, councillors, the mic's not that good.
And the US, that's been grown since the early 80s, well before me.
Other questions, councillors? There being none, thank you very much, Matt, for your presentation. Thank you. Thank you to those two presentations. Councillors, we move to agenda item 3, which is the results of the formal genetic modification area consultation. There is a report there. We'll just give Ashley a second to put that there. Can you just wheel that other thing away, please? Councillor Lynn. Beautiful, thank you. There is a recommendation, councillor. Anyone prepared to move that?
I'll move that one, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, no. I saw Councillor Taylor's arm first.
Okay.
Councillor Taylor. We don't know what we're moving yet. Councillor Taylor.
I'll move the recommendation as written.
Thank you. Are you seconding that, Councillor?
Second that.
Councillor Taylor, you want to address the room? Speak to it. Speak to the report.
The through you, Mr. Mayor, the original, when it was presented to us, first of all, I think there was less of a, although there was a majority, certainly, in the district, it was kind of quite a short majority. So I'm really pleased to now see probably 75% in favour for James Growing. Found the presentations extremely interesting. I've done my own research on it. I have my own point of view as a honey producer. However, I'm just one person, and we're talking about the majority of the growers in our district, and we as a council need to support our industry and our growers, and therefore that's why I fully support it.
Thank you. Councillor Arthur, you want to continue the debate? You reserve. Councillors, it's open for debate. I just might inform the meeting and the public that the minister's given this council an exemption. All councillors, or 7 of the 9 had a potential conflict of interest, and the minister has given us an exemption to all vote in this. Councillors, it's open for debate. Don't rush me. Councillor Taylor, Councillor Arthur, you've reserved your position. Do you wish to speak?
Oh,
before I close, I'm not far from closing.
Okay, well, I will bring it up. We're here to judge what the primary producers and the food producers in this area want. We have done, I think we've done a magnificent job in public consultation, even though after the first consultation, really, we didn't need to go on, because it was worded that if you didn't reply, it was counted as a yes, and there's over 1,500 primary producers in our area. But even those who did put in, it was over 60%. Now we're up to 75 that have decided. It is very interesting that our neighbours are just, Kingston and Tatiara Council are just going with the swing, so they're not even following the debate, so they will be a non-genetically modified food crop area. And we're here to look after our the primary producers in this case, and that's why I'll be voting for it.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, you will close the debate. Close. Thank you. So, councillors, the motions in front of you that move Councillor Taylor, seconded Councillor Arthur, that council does not proceed with an application to the Minister for Primary Industries and Regional Development to be designated a no genetically modified food crop area. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Councillor Land has signalled something to me.
I did. I would like to move a further motion. As per
Yes.
our discussion. And the motion is that the Coorong District Council right to the state government to discuss a GM-free area within the Coorong District Council area. Point 1. Point 2, I'm happy to provide this to you actually, that consideration be given to the Narung Peninsula as a possible GM-free area given its unique geography within our district. Given that the GM-free market is a vibrant market worldwide, it would allow for producers on the Narung Peninsula, both current and future, to source appropriate premium niche markets in line with the Kangaroo Island model. It would also support our agrists or our bee industry in the region to maintain a GM-free status. This does not stop the area from considering GM into the future should the Minister choose to look into this request.
Seek a seconder. Councillor Hill. Councillor Glenn, you want to go on and expand any more? We've just, sorry, the second line, we'll just won't get the second line, just can you repeat? You're just going to pick it up.
Mr. Mayor, is that the motion there, right, the South Australian government to discuss a GM-free area? That's it?
No, it's got a second part.
Until it's up there.
No, it has got two parts, councillor, so perhaps we'll just give Ashley a chance to read the cipher, yes.
Excuse me. Yeah.
So, I'm just going to wait, councillor Roundtree, till I get the full motion on the screen. Can you see the motion or not?
No, I can't see it yet.
I'll read it to you when it's complete.
Thank
That's all right. Councillors, I've considered that this is in relation to the agenda item, so it can come forward in this form.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, when ready, I do have a question on the proposal motion.
That's fine. This time, please. Is that enough, councillor? That was a minute of the motion. Well, you've got a lot of content around it. Does that get the essence of what you are about? That's fine, thank you. So, councillor Roundtree, I'll read the motion without notice, moved by councillor Van, seconded by councillor Hill. We write to the South Australian government to discuss a GM-free area within the Coorong District Council. And the point 2, that consideration be given to the Narung Peninsula as a possible GM-free area given its unique geography in this district. That is the motion that's about to be debated. Councillor Glenn, you wish to speak? Happy reserved. Thank you, Councillor Hill. Do you wish to speak?
I'll just say, given the presentation we've given from last meeting, I feel there may be some appetite within that district to remain GM-free, so I think just being able to open those discussions with the state government might be worthwhile.
Councillor Taylor.
Does anyone know how many farmers we're talking about?
Sorry, we don't. Is that the end of your questions, Councillor?
Yeah.
Councillor Roundtree.
In the previous presentation, there was supporting quotes from a farmer at Narung, and I'm just wondering if we're talking, and he was in support of not writing to the minister and doing this. So I just wanted some clarification about when we talk about Narung and Narung Peninsula, how many farmers would want to be have access to GM seed in the Narung Peninsula, or are we not talking about very many? So I was just a bit surprised to see a supporting statement from Narung. So is it Narung Peninsula or is it Narung? And are they different? Sorry.
I think the supporting words I saw on that presentation was around Roundup Ready use of canola, from memory.
Yeah, and it was from Narung though, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I accept that, Councillor. I think that was what it was in reference to, was they wouldn't be around the Roundup Ready part, but that doesn't mean GM in general. There's two separate things there. One, use of GM, and there's one in the general account. Sorry, I haven't really answered your question, but I've got the answer. No. Councillor Arthur.
Yeah, and I couldn't support this because it is not council's job to go to a specific area and do the work for them. If this, the Narong Peninsula people are interested, they could write to the minister. If everyone out there was the same, we had a presentation from one person. So we would probably support them in their application to the government, but I don't believe it's the council's job to be doing that. And I don't think the government would want it on an individual basis with splitting a council up. So if the Narong Peninsula farmers feel that strongly about it, they should write to the minister, not leave it to us as the council. That's what I would support.
Clarification, Councillor Taylor.
Through your without knowing how many farms we're looking at, I'm not even sure what area of land it is. So I'm at a bit of a loss to know where and what we're talking about.
So the way I would read that is we've got a letter and we're probably seeking the minister's consideration. Is it possible to have a part of our council area, and we are the biggest council in the state, as a distinct or discrete area where it could be considered to be free? I might ask the CEO to sort of give us her view on the possibilities of this.
My understanding is that it's local government as a geographic region. They can make the application if they so desire. So our first motion was that that wouldn't happen. Writing a letter to the minister is probably, in my view, probably not going to sway the debate at all. We probably would have to have some clarification around what geographical area we're talking about, as well as the number of farmers involved. And I'm aware, and Councillor Rowntree made a comment, that even those farmers who live in that particular geographical area probably don't agree with each other in what they want in terms of this debate. So council could write the letter to the minister, and I don't think there's any problem with that. And I'll probably give my words, but I don't think that it would be a successful submission, because at this point in time, we'd be looking at two things that the government has said we shouldn't be doing. One is to look at discrete geographical areas within our council area, and secondly, to understand the economics of it completely, and we don't understand the economics of it completely for that small geographical area. But that's not to say we can't write and flag the issue.
Thank you. Further debate on this subject? You will close the debate. No, but I'm going to speak first.
You get to do that.
Yes, I do. So thank you, councillors. I actually have some sympathy for this position, but unfortunately, I think we'll be entering into an area where I think we will be told that we cannot do it. That's my advice, that a discrete area could not be done as part of this. It was all or nothing of council, unfortunately, in the process given to us by the state government. But nonetheless, I do see an advantage in an area if it wishes. I don't know how that process could be judged to be different, but at this stage, I won't be able to support the motion. Councillor Bland, you'll close the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We all heard previously from farmer on the Narong Peninsula, and I know that that farmer has spoken to many other farms out there. We have both dairy, broadacre, and organic in the same areas. And to answer Councillor Rowntree's comment, the farm that was on there was one broadacre. What was a broadacre farm? Is a broadacre farmer out there. And I know that there has been some discussion around the in relation to that. Now, I haven't gone and lobbied
any of the farmers in relation to that. It is just a request to talk to government about whether or not there is some potential for it, given that we were given a very short time frame and also very precise instructions on what it is we were and were not allowed to do in our districts, and that is purely on economics. And many of the farmers who are organic or wish to remain GM-free, economics at this point in time can be impossible for them to stack up against in such a short time. And of course, our area, majority will go GM. There is no doubt about that, and stats don't lie. So I don't doubt that that's where we should be going. However, having said that, I also have some sympathy for people on the Narrabri Peninsula. I also have a lot of sympathy for our acres in our area, and if we're really, serious about trying to protect different industries, maybe there is a niche market for some of this to be considered. I don't think it's been strongly looked at. Looking around some of the other possibilities that could happen, we could make a point of difference. However, I take on point what everyone else has said here, whether we see it as our business or not. People on the Narrabri Peninsula or any of those individuals out there also have as many rights to have a viable business. And I know that we've talked about roadside and it's been discounted, but let's be honest, we pick up the bill for cleaning up the Narrabri Peninsula, Coolby Road, and everywhere else around here now. What we don't know yet, and as Councillor Arthur indicated before, the South East are not going anywhere, they're not taking this debate at all. We know that tonight there is a meeting in Karoonda that has a number of guest speakers, and that council is going to come from that area. We don't know what their decision is either. So individually, we've been covered to make this decision. I think it's very foolish on state government, to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor. That closes debate. Councillor Roundtree, the debate's not amended. You aware of what we're voting on? Okay, councillors, everyone else is. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? I declare the motion lost. We've got all the names, actually.
Again, Taylor, Arthur, Roundtree.
Yes.
For Landsfield.
Yes. Councillors all happy that that was the vote? Council's policy to record everyone votes in this council. So that was lost. Okay, thank you, councillors. Is there anything else around that subject? Thank you. So to the members of the gallery, which I presume aren't staying for a late item around the street party, you may be lucky enough to get. Thank you. Thank you for your presentations. We won't be long, I hope. I move on to item number 4, the late item. Temporary road closure, street party Taylor Bend. There is a recommendation, councillors. Question from Councillor Taylor.
One of the comments from the team who put it together last year was, would the Friday the 25th be more suitable, given it's then not a work day following, and it's also the last day, sorry, if I can find it. Currently the school holidays, that's the last day of school, the Friday, 25th. Therefore, schools will be released early. Well, that was the thinking.
So, councillor, and I don't know what the advice will be. We have to designate that particular night in this motion. A day in this week would be my question.
Give them most flexibility, and I'll need some governance guidance, but I would like to put the range of days. The Friday is preferable for a whole lot of reasons, as you suggest. The middle of the week was picked because it was a day where we knew the maximum number of people would be available in the community. But through you, Mayor, can I ask the governance officer whether we can have a range of dates for consideration when you gazette it? Going to say no.
Going to say no, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's an approval or not by the powers that be. So then the community and everyone this road was at this time.
So the motion can't say one night or choice of nights at all.
Not in my view, no. I've not had this put to me before, but
Enjoy this business.
yes,
Sorry, Councillor Taylor, yes, you're still on the question.
Through you, Mayor, then I would recommend moving into the Friday because it is the last day of school. People don't have to go to work the following day. Those that will be working, and that will be a vast majority of people who may travel to either or event, who will be working for the week in the middle. And therefore, if they're coming up for the event, they could come up on the Friday.
So with that change, we could make it the Friday the 25th of September. Are you prepared to move that? Thank you, councillors. That's she doesn't want to move, you can do it like. Is there a seconder? Councillor Ling, you want to speak to it?
no. Question,
Yes, certainly, councillor.
in relation to due diligence around COVID compliance. I'm just wondering whether we can have a further point that needs to be just listed here somewhere. But I think it's important that the community know that it is being fully considered, and also whether or not the point that CEO made before that there will be a business discussion happening at that point in May as well. As it comes.
So the purpose of this plate item is for the gazettal of the road closure. The COVID, we have already got responsibilities under state government law surrounding that. And the last part about the community engagement is a given in my book, but I don't know if it adds anything to this because it's about the road gazettal closure.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering what the mechanism is so that people read or see this document and see it only as a road closure, but not as the due diligence A on COVID-19 and B on communication with local businesses. How we might get that information from the government.
Or we could supplement this with making sure that our media and press releases around this are much more comprehensive than we might normally do.
Mr. Mayor, I'll just a few questions to see. You've got Parliament in primary school down here, and I find it hard to believe that they would be involved in this. But, you know, at our school, that no one's allowed on the premise after the school finishes, so that people don't mix with the school kids. Secondly, have we actually gone around and asked the shop owners and that? Because they've still got their COVID-19 plans that they have to abide by. You know, like the school, the square metre, the 10 people maximum, depending on the size. So, and also, have we asked the local service clubs if they're able to do it, sporting clubs, generally speaking? Have we made any approach to them at all, and the business?
As I mentioned earlier, Councillor, this is very early, giving us some flexibility to have that discussion. By the end of this week, we will have talked with the group that you mentioned. So, remembering we only knew about this yesterday, this is about giving us the flexibility to close the road. And happening now, from now to the end of the week, will be the discussion with businesses. The Tailem Event Store is mentioned there because there's a possibility of having a stall at this function, not us using the school grounds. So, is this the ideal way to do business? The answer is no. But given the shortness of the time frame and the intention, I suppose, to take advantage of something that we didn't think was possible, this is to give us maximum flexibility, but all the things that you mentioned will be accounted for. We will be talking to the businesses by the end of the week. I mentioned it at the bakery this morning when I was there, and they were excited about doing something for it. That's my only level of community engagement at this point, but it will be with all the businesses by the end of the week to ensure that they are comfortable with this, that it will work for them. And overlaying that, we have a responsibility that we can't ignore, which is the COVID responsibility under South Australian government law. And we've been doing that since COVID was first announced, and the emergency was announced back in March of this year. So we have been doing that as a matter of practice because we had nowhere else to go.
So is it $600 is the cost for advertising just the road closure?
If it says it's $600 there, council, it's $600.
Okay. And if, will you be presenting back to the council a full costing of what's going to be involved? Because, you know, you're going to have all these qualified marshals to be done. Is what we're implying here that the council's going to really show?
That's what you mean. The council, because of the short notice of it,
Yeah, no, that's fine.
yeah, I think that council has a responsibility to take the lead. I think we will be the facilitator, and there are a lot of community groups who want to get involved. There'll be some who, because of COVID, don't have any volunteers anymore, or their volunteers are resident, as you say, about getting involved. So council will take the lead in that, be facilitating it. But if there's a particular group, and I won't pick any, but if they want to look after a particular part of it or take a lead role, none of that's been discussed yet, councillor, but we will do that by the end of this week.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I believe the report should come back to council on that.
Councillor Roundtree, then Councillor Coleman. I can see you there, Councillor Roundtree. Your arm must be getting sore.
It's terribly sore. Thank you, Mayor. I want to support this. I think if we don't, this is crazy. If we don't support this and do whatever we can to make this work, then our neighbours will pick this up as an opportunity, and we will be really disappointed if that happens. So I think it's in our neighbourhood. Let's make it work. You can do all the reports that you need to do, but let's just get this going if we can, using being COVID safe. I thoroughly support doing it. I mean, we've already got a big sign out now saying we are Tailem Bend, and a big picture of Motorsport Park. It's what Tailem Bend is going to be known for in the years to come as well. So if we get the opportunity to have street parties every year and actually get involved in this in any way, whether it's council or one of the other groups, we should just grab it with both hands and just do it. It's a no-brainer from my perspective.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Coleman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I totally support this too, and we can't miss the boat. And Friday's a good day, and people encourage them to stay over. I just want to ask a question. Work zone traffic management qualified person, is that not going to be outsourced? That would be our own resources through the chair to the CEO?
We will have as many as we can. Under COVID, I'm not sure whether we've got enough, but we will certainly be aiming to use staff if they have those qualifications, and then supplement if we have to.
Councillor Taylor, you want to close the debate? We've got a question.
I'll close it.
You closed it? Okay. Okay, councillor, there's a motion there, which is very close to the original, with the change to the Friday being the nominated day. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That gets carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. That is the completion of the meeting at 6:33. Thank you very much.
Can I just say for those who are interested, the plan was done by James last year, and we only need one work safe person.
That's what last year's plan required.
Well, it's the same plan.
Yeah.
But with less, it's exactly the same number of closures. It's down to the one person to delegate that down. There's also the motion in place as a result of last year's state party, which was to get community members trained in that work.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, councillors, and we will be stopping the recording in a moment now. Thank you.
Nice not to have a long drive home. See ya.
Yeah.